So, here are the readings. The first one is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 3, verses 24 and 25. If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house will not be able to stand.
Right?
From the exposition of the divine principle, chapter 1. A human being attains perfection when he centers his life on his mind. And from A Prophet Speaks Today by Sun Myung Moon, pages 26 and 54. The most important thing is not all the complicated struggles and problems of the world, but finding the self that is not divided and does not struggle. God also must find an individual who can be eternally united with him and who cannot be destroyed by anyone or anything in this world. Therefore, through the course of history, God designed his providence to uncover one such man from among all people. We are all looking for the ideal man or ideal woman. However, having looked at the people of the whole world, you will come to the conclusion that there is no person who can truly be the model for you. Ultimately speaking, however hard you try to find such a person, you will not find one. You must finally decide that you had better find the perfect model for you in yourself. Then you have started in search of your original self. When you look into yourself, you will find something of vast value, which is something like the source, the origin, God. Adieu.
Adieu.
It's really my honor and pleasure to invite up our speaker today, Reverend Dr. Wayne Miller.
Hello. My name is Wayne Miller, in case you hadn't guessed it by now. I'm very happy to be here. I was asked a couple of months ago, on September 11th, actually, to give a sermon at the Clifton Church in New Jersey. And they posted that on YouTube. They taped it and posted it on YouTube. And we got some pretty favorable responses. One of those favorable responses came from my spiritual grandmother, Lisa Take, who was petitioned Reverend Werner here, Pastor Werner, to have me come down sometime. He thought he might be gone this weekend visiting his family. He got back actually, but just in case, he didn't want to risk not having someone to speak, so he invited me to speak, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. As Shinan said, I joined the church 47 years ago, 1969. And it was a long time ago. One of the first people I met was Lisa Take. I was actually visiting Los Angeles with my family. We were visiting relatives. We lived on the East Coast. And normally, just in Los Angeles for like a week and a half, my cousin, who Lisa had witnessed to, said she would never have witnessed to me because I wasn't going to be there to study principle. So she didn't want to burden me with this and then have me take off. But I had certain spiritual experiences growing up where I knew in my heart that God had something for me to do. And so the only thing, I made a pact with God. I said, look, I don't know what you want me to do, but I'll look everywhere. I'll sort of look everywhere. I'll investigate everything. Just point me in the right direction. So he pointed me to my cousin. And so I asked her one night, we were just riding around Los Angeles looking at the sites. And I said, well, what are you doing? She said, well, I'm with this unification family, this unified family, and we have teachings. Well, I want to know what they are. She goes, well, we don't usually talk to people who aren't going to be here. I said, look, God told me I'm going to find out something, and if you know something, you got to tell me. So when I heard chapter 1, that was it. Like, oh my God. Because one of the things that I had realized growing up is I was thinking about a couple very profound points, like, what is the purpose of my life? What am I going to do? Be a scientist or a professor or this or that. I said, but that's all like external. What's really important? And I thought, the most important thing is to have an ideal family. I want to have an ideal family. Of course, at that time, I didn't realize I would have to become ideal. I just thought, I should be the right woman. But, and also, I had a friend in high school who told me He said, one day, he said, I don't think I'm a Christian. I think maybe I'm Jewish. I said, why? I mean, we went to the same church. He said, why do you say that? He goes, I don't think Jesus was God. I can't get my head around that. And I had never thought about that directly before, but I thought, okay, let me think. And I just thought this, no, Jesus is not God. I just realized, no, he's not God. He's a very, very special human being. But he's a human being. He's not God. I don't know how I know that, but I know it. It's just there in my head. It's there. And then I was reading stuff on Christianity, and there's people saying, it doesn't matter what you do on earth. You have the right belief, you go to heaven. And I said, why, that doesn't make any sense at all. I said, why would God create the physical world if it's just meaningless? We're just here to make sure we got the right doctrine. Like, what about the people who were born in Africa or India or someplace? No, if God created the world, there has to be a purpose to the physical world, of the physical life. There has to be a purpose. It makes sense, right? So when I heard the principle of creation, physical body provides the energy for your spirit to grow to perfection, and only then can you enter the kingdom of heaven in the spirit world. And the way you do that is to create ideal families. And, oh my God, this guy's even smarter than I am. because I had some of these thoughts that are in the principle. I had some of these inspirations, but I wasn't able to put it all together in a package, whereas Father just lays it all out. This is the way it is. And my son, Sonny, who's kind of he likes to poke me sometimes. He said, well, Dad, suppose I, in college or afterwards, I made some sort of cult. They want me to join. Well, should I just turn it down? And I give him the same advice that Dr. Ron gave his daughter when she ran into somebody at Berkeley who was trying to recruit her for Hare Krishna or something. And she said, I don't know what to do. He goes, no, go ahead. Check out everything. If you can find some group or theology that's more clear and more convincing than the divine principle, I'll come join you myself. Really, just don't be afraid of anything. You should be able to investigate everything and take the best from everything. So anyway, one of the first people I met after meeting my cousin and Lisa Taki and John Schuart, I went to Berkeley, California, and met Dr. Edwin Ang, because I had relatives in Berkeley, so that's why we're up there. And Dr. Ang, I remember he just said to me, make sure you study the principle. It's very important. I said, okay, absolutely. So I actually did study the principle, and I actually was in college. I stayed in college for 2 years, but I started my own church center there. Philip Burley took me under his wing for a few weeks at Washington, D.C. I went there in the summer of '69, and he taught me how to teach the principle, really the condensed course. So I went back and I taught principle to all my friends, and we had 12 people join in 2 years. Of course, most of them left, but still, some of them didn't leave, and even the ones who left witnessed other people who are still around. So I'm very happy about that. After that, I went to New York City, and I became, so one way or another, the main lecturer for the New York City Church. So I've actually lectured the divine principle more than 1,000 times, all the way through, in various ways and means. The thing that always amazes me is when I talk to people, I say, oh, have you been studying the principle? Are you going to go on this workshop? You're going to go? They say, I don't need that. I've read the divine principle 2 or 3 times already. I got it. I'm down. I'm good for that. Like, well, you've heard it or read it 2 or 3 times, and you just got it, right? That's amazing. I really, I wish I were you. Because even now, after 47 years, whenever I study the principle, I learn something new every single time. I just read something, oh my God, I didn't realize that. That's amazing. And, we want to do Hundike. And people say, well, I don't do principle, I just do Hundike. That's fine. I think it's really important to read Father's words. Yeah, absolutely. But if we don't understand the principle, sometimes it's really hard to know what Father's talking about. Because it's like the principle is skeleton, and Hundike is the flesh on the skeleton, which fills it out. You can't have the flesh without the skeleton, or you just collapse. You can't have the skeleton, and if you don't have the flesh, that's not good either. You're very thin. You're sort of wasting away. So you need both. So I just want to say that up front, because I've studied the principle a lot, and I'm convinced that there's nothing else like it anywhere. And so But anyway, the topic of my sermon is unification existentialism, or, it's time to pack up our sorrows. I know many of you, right? Keith Cooper, Lisa, Harumi, a bunch of you I know, Misako-san, back there, wonderful sister, Misako. She's not my babysitter for my daughter, my granddaughter. And many other things as well, and your bookkeeper. I've known you guys for a long time, and I know that when we joined the Unification Church 35, 40, 47 years ago, we were excited. We were happy. Even though life sometimes was miserable, we were happy. Yeah, those 20-hour fundraising conditions, 7 days a week, or 40-hour witnessing conditions with no sleep, or the 7-day fast. We did all this, but we were happy. Why were we happy? Well, let me ask you a question. How many of you could say, I'm happy today? Please raise your hand if you say, I'm really happy. Okay. I see, look, maybe. Okay. We were happy because we felt we were doing something very important, and we chose to do it. We chose to do it.
That's right.
Now, my life in the church has been rather odd. Except for David Kim and Dr. On in the seminary, it seems like everybody I worked with hated me. We've all had these situations, but people wanted to kill me. They wanted to throw me out. Yeah. I actually had people tell me, I don't like you. I think you should leave the university. I want to see your face here. But I'm kind of stubborn. I'm German background. So I would just look at them in the face and say, you don't like being here with me? Fine. You can leave. I'm going to stay. And many times they left. At least sometimes. But the point is, I chose to be here. So some people ask me, sometimes I had really bad situations where I was working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. My wife also. We were getting almost no money from the church. Wasn't paying us. We were just living on breadcrumbs and water. I'm not kidding there. And people say, well, Reverend Miller, why don't you just quit and leave and do something else? I said, why? Because I made a commitment. I made a commitment to God, to parents, that I would do this. And no one, nothing is going to push me off my path. I don't care who it is or what it is. I'm here. My father one time said this to people, never let anyone else ruin your kingdom of heaven. Never let anyone else ruin your life. If you decide to do something, then do it. But to go back to happiness here. We were happy. For those years we worked in the church, especially the first 5 or 10 years, boy, we'd get up early, we'd pray, I only got 3 hours sleep last night, but I'm really psyched to go out there and whatever I'm going to do, But over time, especially after you get blessed and start having kids, then suddenly the world starts to impinge upon you. The world's, money, concerns, this and that, and we're like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do, And then the church says, we have to give 10% of your income, or you have to give 10% of this, or you have to do this or that. We're like, oh my God, I can't afford that. Okay. So eventually we start to get this seed of complaint. I don't think the church is using my offering properly. I don't know. I don't trust the church hierarchy. I don't trust this. I don't trust that. Okay. You know what? If this weren't a church, I'd use a different language. But to heck with the church. I never wanted to join a church. Okay, let me just say this right up front. I grew up in a family, my parents were the most wonderful Christians you can imagine. My father actually, back in the 30s and 40s when my parents got married, they were dirt poor. I mean, he was making $20 a week at his job or something ridiculous like that. But eventually, my father saved up enough money to buy a nice winter trench coat to wear to church on Sundays, a nice one. So the first day he had it, he and my mother went to church. On the way back from church, there was a guy hitchhiking. And it was winter, blizzard outside. The guy's in his shirt sleeves, no coat. My father picked him up, and this is upstate New York. The weather was probably 10 below zero or something like that. So my father gives the guy a ride, asks where he's going, takes him there. And then, after he's about to let the guy out, My father gets out of the car and takes up his coat and gives it to this guy. He said, I think we need this more than I do. That was my father. He believed in the words of Jesus. They were never doctrinaire. They were never doctrinaire. My father didn't say this doctrine, that doctrine, the Holy Spirit, the Trinity. No, he said, if you believe in God and Jesus, you should read the scriptures and live accordingly. If you don't live according to the teaching of Jesus, you are not a Christian. I don't care what you say you believe. And my mother was just, she wasn't quite as theological as my father, but she was a wonderful person. They moved to Florida when they retired. When my mother passed away in 1984, 200 cars were in the funeral procession. 200 different families went to her funeral, to the grave, because they loved her. This is how good my parents were. So they were like, in my opinion, they were the best that Christianity had to offer. But when I went to the church, oh my gosh, people are backstabbing and backbiting and sniping and spreading rumors, vicious rumors, because somebody I want that position. I don't like them in that position. I want to have their position. I want that position. I want to be in charge of Sunday school. I want to be in charge of this. Like, I just thought, what in the world is that? What's that all about? How can people call themselves Christian when they're behaving this way? So I decided, by the time I left high school, I was like, I don't like religion. But still, God had asked me, God had told me I have something to do. In 1960, I was sitting in church, in the front of church, and I saw Jesus up in the front. Just for a few seconds, Jesus was there, all golden, but seemingly far away. And I was like, freaked out, like, oh my God. And then when I looked a couple of seconds later, he was gone. So I said to my father later, I said, I don't know if I'm losing my mind or hallucinating, but I think I saw Jesus in church this morning. And my father said, no, God probably has something he wants you to do. So you should pray and ask him. I was 11 years old at the time. And so for the next 9 years, from 11 to the age of 20, I would pray every night, asking God, what do you want me to do? Now, don't be wrong. I wasn't like some sort of monk or something. I was a normal teenager, like to party and have fun with my friends and everything. But I always prayed every night, God, what do you want me to do? So eventually, long story, I can tell you about how I met the church, but it's very complicated. But anyway, I ended up going to California, met the church, and I realized God wanted me to do this. This is what God wanted me to do. But I came back to Washington, D.C., and I wanted to know more about the church and study more. And they were having some meeting, or VOC or something. They said, so I wanted to go in. They said, well, are you a church member? Did you sign the paper? And I said, sign what paper? Well, you can be a church member. This is for church members. I said, look, if Reverend Moon is the Messiah, I'm following him. I don't know what this church is or these papers want me to sign, but I intend to follow the Messiah. So you can step out of my way. So they let me in. But eventually, a few months later, I thought, okay, I really see the picture now, and so I'll join. I'll sign the paper. I'll make you happy. I'll sign this paper. But in my heart, I never joined any church. I just wanted to follow true parents. That's all I wanted. Amen. I wanted to support true parents. So, as I said, I had good times and bad times, mostly bad times. There was far more bad times than good times. But I don't regret it. And why? Because look at my family. They're fabulous. They're great kids. I love my kids. I cannot complain to God about how life has treated me. Because somehow, no matter how bad things get, there's always the sunshine. There's always something the next day or the next year or something comes out really good. I'll even, many years ago, in fact, some woman stole my doctoral dissertation and published it as her own. And it was a hard blow because it put me behind like 20 years of my academic work. But I realized recently, she did me a favor. If I had finished my doctoral dissertation in 1987, Father probably would have sent me to Korea or China or Russia, and I would have been separated from my family. And then these poor little walkers would have had no daddy there to guide them and tell them how to behave in high school. So actually, as a result of being damaged by this woman, I got to spend more time with my kids, for which I'm very grateful. And so, to me, there's no downside ultimately. If we go for, Father even said, people someday will want to pay indemnity for the restoration of the world, and they won't be able to because it's already paid. And they'll be full of regret that they didn't participate when they had the chance. So for me, this is really important that we can be grateful, not only for the blessings, but also for the difficult times, which bring us closer to God. You know, this is a very important point. But to go on with existentialism, what's it to do with existentialism? Well, as I said, we were happy 40 years ago because we joined the church. We made that decision. Now, of course, for a second gen here, you're saying, I didn't make a decision. I was born in this damn place. But it doesn't matter. You can still decide.
Yeah.
This is the point of existentialism. Any of you ever study philosophy in college? Okay. So those of you who have studied philosophy, you know, existentialism began 240, 50 years ago with Søren Kierkegaard in Denmark. He was a very devout Christian who really, a lot like after my own heart, he really thought the church sucked. It was like big time. The church is terrible. It's just a social club, you know. You know, when people start getting old, they think, well, I better go to church and impress God with my presence here, you know. And also people, you know, I can run for mayor afterwards, you know, because everyone knows what a great churchgoer I am. He said, no, the point of the church is not a social club. You have to make a passionate commitment to the gospel. So he said, even if the idea of God being incarnate in a human being makes no logical sense, if you're that kind of person, it doesn't matter. You can still choose to believe and choose to follow the teachings of Christ. And so he was very big on this. And he was the sort of the father of existentialism. Then 50 years or so later, you know, Friedrich Nietzsche, who was very famous. Most people think he's an atheist. I'm not even sure he's an atheist. He like Kierkegaard and like Marx, he hated the church. He thought the church makes people just into slaves, into sheep. And it's true, if you go back 200 years, what was the whole point of the church? They were telling people, well, you should just obey. Whatever you're told to do, just obey. Be meek, be humble. Don't ruffle the feathers. Don't oppose the powers that be because they are ordained by God. And if you oppose the king or the prince or the whatever, or the church, you are going to hell. So he thought this was horrible. And so he said this was a slave morality. And he wanted people to have, you know, real morality, like doing what you think is right. So his idea was, you know, in the medieval times, the medieval knights, if you offended them, or especially if you offended the woman that they loved, well, that was it. They throw down the gauntlet, you know, the swords, you know, chop, chop, chop. But he said that's real heroism. Somebody saying, I will not stand for this affront. I will speak up. I will stand up for what I believe. So Nietzsche was not really counseling people to be evil. He was saying people should do what they think is right, and they should stick to it. And if you make a commitment to do what's right, don't be a wiener or a whiner. don't sway. Be true to yourself. So, in the 20th century, existentialism was mostly taken over by atheists, Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre. And despite their atheism, they hit on a lot of really good points. Sartre's famous expression is, existence precedes essence. He said, you know, in Christianity, everybody, oh, I'm a child of God, blah, 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 and therefore I can do this. He said, no, you are what you do. No, I think it's a little bit both. Obviously, the principle says how you behave, what you do, affects your spiritual growth. So it's both essence and existence. But the real contribution of Sartre and Camus was We have absolute radical freedom. It doesn't matter where you are, what you do, you always have the freedom to choose how you are going to respond to your situation. He said you should never, the real thing about existentialism was the idea of authenticity. We should live authentically. And by that they mean we should consciously, deliberately, thoughtfully, passionately choose to do what we do and not be on autopilot. As I said, I do teach philosophy and ethics at Widener University, which is south of Philadelphia. It's near the Delaware border. And I'm always intrigued when it's election time. I'll ask my students, "Well, who are you going to vote for this time?" I'm not, going to test you on this. I'm not particularly partisan. I can know who you vote for. So they say, "Well, I'm going to vote for so-and-so," whatever it is. And I say, "Well, why are you voting for that person?" "Well, because all my friends are voting for that person." "Okay, but why are your friends voting for that person?" "Well, because other friends are voting for that person." So in other words, you don't have any clue as to why you're voting for somebody other than it's cool, it's the in thing to do, So in this election period, if you're a Trump person and your friends are all Trumps, then they're like, "Yeah, I got a Trump." If you're a Hillary person and your friends are all Hillary person, "Yeah, I got to go Hillary." But the vast majority of Americans really don't know. They haven't looked deeply into the other candidate to know what they've actually done with their lives. If they did, we'd probably go home and throw up. But anyway, I'm just saying. No, those who are Trump fans, don't get me wrong. I see a Trump fan back there. Go ahead. I understand I really do understand what the issues are. But I would say this, that neither party has put forth their best candidate, in my honest opinion. But it doesn't matter. I'm just saying most people don't really think about what they do or why they do it deeply. Now, you guys may be different. And I'm not judging you guys at all. But here's the thing. 40 years ago, you joined the Unification Church because you wanted to. But over the years, life crept up on you. And you have financial problems. You have problems, children, adult children. You don't know what to do. You're really struggling with this or that. And then you say, "Well, you should give $300 for this or $200 for that." Back in the day, that was like a day's, we got fundraise one day and make $300. Like, what's the big deal? Okay, go make money, give it. Now it's like, "Oh my God, the church said I have to give $300. Why should I give $300? Well, there's this holy wine that's like perfection stage holy wine. Like, oh, what do we need perfection stage holy wine for? I don't know, but father and mother are the true parents. So they said we need it. I'm just going to take it on faith that we need it. But here's the thing. Mother never said, you have to give. In fact, the word went out, you don't have to give anything. You should give what you want to give, if you want to give something. But I would say, if you can get into heaven for $300, it's pretty good, pretty good bargain. But I don't know. But you see, the thing is about existentialism, and why I keep coming back to it, it's like, in existentialism, you can make any decision you want. But two caveats. One is, you have to do it thoughtfully and deliberately. And number two, no whining. We are the church of holy wine, but sometimes I think we're also the church of holy wine. Reverend so-and-so, this is what I want to do. Headquarters can do what I want to do. As much as I don't like being a part of any church, I am a part of this church. So if I don't like what the church is doing, and I think something else should be done, why not just do it? Just do it. I told many people recently, if the whole Unification Church, the whole structure collapsed tomorrow, it wouldn't bother me at all. Like, okay, it collapsed. So what? We're still blessed couples. I found a quote, just where Father says the whole point of our life is not. In fact, I got it on my phone. No, just tell. That's it. I don't want to misquote Father here. Here we go. The greatest purpose of religion is to build true families. That is the purpose of the coming of the Messiah. Not to create some additional religion, My God, the world has enough religions already. So our goal is not to create a bigger, better religion than other people, but to show people in this world how to create true families. Now, how do we do this? We do this by centering on our original mind. Another quote from Father. The original mind is God's starting point and the origin of the kingdom of heaven. That's where we're supposed to be. This is the age of eternal good. So, as I said, the thing with existentialism is number one, choose deliberately, think thoughtfully, and number two, don't complain. If you make a choice and you find out later it was a bad choice, okay, don't blame other people. Make a better choice. When I was lecturing back in New York City back 40 years ago, I was pretty persuasive as a lecturer. I'm not bragging, just facts, right? Stanley was there. And he's one of my success stories here. But people would come to me after a 3-day workshop or whatever, or 7-day workshop and say, so, Reverend Miller, Mr. Miller, does this mean I should join the Unification Church? And I would say, I don't know. I'm not God. I can't make that decision for you. Now, I got in a lot of trouble for saying that. My leaders all want me to say, yes, you want to join the Unification Church. But no, I'm thinking, if you remember the 70s, it was brutal. It was brutal. I mean, people were lucky to last a month, right? So somebody says to me, should I join the church? I'm like, well, I don't know. Can you last a week? Can you last a month? I don't know. But what I'd say to them, if you think, I can't tell you what to do because that's between you and God. But if you think the principle is valuable, then I encourage you, please study it. Please go to another 3-day workshop or 7-day workshop. Take the book home with you. Read it. And then, if your heart, if your mind says, yes, this is what I must do, then do it. Do it. Then, you see, if I tell someone to join a church and then a few months later they're having a miserable time and they got an MFT captain who's not very nice to them, say, oh, that Reverend Miller told me to join. No, but if they join of their own free will, if they join from their own mind, heart, and conscience, that's a totally different story. And the people who joined, because they felt it was the right thing to do, are much more likely to stick around than those who don't. Now, as I said, we've been through a lot of stuff, we've got a lot of problems, and so complaint begins to grow in our heart. But I remember reading somewhere, the Father said, one of the worst things you can do is to try to take back your offering. Try to resent your offering. To grumble and complain because it's like spitting on your offering. Look, our minds change, our perspective change over time. So maybe what we would do today, or maybe what we did long ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, is not what we would do today. Okay, so do something different. But you shouldn't regret what you offered with a pure heart. You should never regret any offering made with a pure heart. God can accept that offering, even if the leader steals all the money and goes to Brazil. That's not your fault. That's not your problem. You made the offering. They went and bought a $1,000, golf, course thing. I heard these things, right? Oh, they're taking all the money and buying, what do you call it? Country club memberships. Okay, I didn't give the money for that purpose, but that's their problem, and it's a big problem for them, not my problem. The Catholic Church had this problem back in the Middle Ages, right? The Cathari and the Albigenses back in the 1400s, they were saying, your offering is no good if the priest is no good. And the Pope said, no, if you make an offering, the offering is good. If you make it with a pure heart, your offering is good. But if the church is not using your money the way you want to use it, then okay, don't give anymore. I mean, don't do something you're going to regret or complain about. Remember, existentialism, no whining. If you do something and it doesn't turn out right, then do something different.
Joining us all the way from Delaware. Dr. Miller, Reverend Miller, joined the Unification Church in 1969 while he was in LA. For some period of time, he was, in the 70s, the prime principal lecturer for our New York City church. He also attended and graduated from the Unification Theological Seminary between 1977 and graduated in 1979. That was the third class. He was, of course, matched by our true father in 1979 to his wife, Warren Miller, who was a PhD student at UPenn at the time, and they were blessed in the 2075 couples in New York City in 1982, like so many of you here today with us. His wife wanted to join us here today, wasn't feeling well, so our best wishes to her. He has a tremendous family here with him today. His eldest son, Godfrey Miller, who just sang for us, and his wife, Nari Boffman Miller, who sang as well. They have two children, Freya, their daughter, and also their son, Gareth, who's 4 years old. And of course, the Miller family is quite substantial. They have a second son, Roderick. He's blessed to Janina Hardman Miller. He's a lawyer currently working for Davis Polk in New York City. I want to make sure I've got everybody in here. They have their daughter. Her name is Alexia. She's at the front. We've seen Alexia in our church before. They recently moved to Northern Virginia, so we're glad to have them. And her husband, his name is Jeffrey Dilge. And then their youngest son is, and of course she has a daughter. We've seen her many times.
Yeah.
Diella? Diella is her name. Yes. And their youngest son, Sunhyun, who's working to pursue a computer science degree at Thomas Edison State University in New Jersey. So, well, let's give a round of applause. We're grateful to have.
And for your second gen, you did not join the church of your own free will. You were born into it. But the same thing goes for you. You can choose what you want to do. I'm giving you, not that I have the authority, but I'm giving you freedom. Do whatever you want. You want to be a drug addict? No. You want to live a fast life with loose women? No. You can do that. Of course, you'll die of AIDS and, or whatever. You'll snort some cocaine and have a heart attack. You can do that. It's a bad idea, most people tell you, but the point is, I don't think most of you are going to do that. But the point is, you should not feel constrained. I have to do what my parents are telling me. My kids all went to good schools, got great degrees, and very successful. I never pushed them. I never told them what to study. I was a science major originally, a long time ago, my first life. But I changed to literature, and then I joined the church and changed to religion, theology, and so forth. The only thing I said to my kids, if you want to do well in life, you probably should do well in school. And if you want to go to a good college, you better do your best to try and get an A average, because then you get good scholarships. Because, especially in those years, we were really broke all the time. And so I said, I can't give you any money for college. I mean, zero, absolutely zero. Maybe I can send you $100 once a month for food or something, but apart from that, you're on your own. I didn't tell them what to study, but they all really busted their butts to study and do well and accomplish something. I didn't tell them what to do. The only thing I told them, I said, you don't have to join the Unification Church. You don't have to do that. The only thing I would encourage you to do, if you can, is to get blessed. To the best of your ability, get blessed and try to make it work. And if it turns out that the blessing is a total failure and your spouse does terrible things and leaves you, all right. From there on, you can choose whatever else you want to do. But at least give it a shot. But even then, I'm not going to force you to do it. Do it only if you want to do it. Because if I force you, it won't be coming from you. So, my thinking about it, the reason I'm talking about this existentialism stuff is that I've heard many members, older members like myself, making all sorts of complaints. And even the splinter groups we have now are based on complaint. Oh, the church offended you? Please join us. We'll get revenge on those people. Like, when did Father talk about getting revenge? When did Father ever talk about damning people to hell? I've never heard Father. In fact, he's very clear. There is no eternal damnation. It doesn't happen. It doesn't mean you can't end up in a bad place and make bad decisions, but there's no eternal damnation. There's no revenge. Father's message was always, if you think someone's not doing what you think they should be doing. Love them. Serve them. Serve them to the point where they have to listen to you. But the point is that, what was I saying? I just lost my train of thought here.
Damnation.
Damnation. There's no damnation. But the point is that, no, hold on. I had something in my mind here. What was it? Oh, yes, this is the age of Chernobyl. What I mean by that is, we have entered a new phase of our relationship to God. For 40 years when Father was around, he was ordering us to do all kinds of stuff. Go here, go there, go to Los Angeles, go to New York, go to Korea, go to Brazil. And people went. And because Father said it so strongly, we didn't question. Then Father passed away, and Mother said, well, Mother, what should we do? You should become tribal messiahs. Like, what? What's that all about? And people, when Father was telling us to spend our whole fortunes and travel to all these places, we didn't complain. But Mother says, be tribal messiah. Like, oh, I can't believe she said that. Why did she say that? Working Trinities? Oh my God. Whose idea is that? Well, here's the thing. Mother didn't say you have to do anything. She said, I advise you to do this. If you want to be successful by 2020, let's try and get the word out. One second, Jen asked her a couple of years ago, Mother, what can I be doing to be doing God's will? To be serving God and true parents? She said, find out what you love. Find out what you're good at. And whatever you choose, be the best that you can be in that thing. And when you've succeeded in becoming the best you can be, you will automatically be testifying to God and your parents. When I heard that, I almost wept. I thought, wow, that's what we all need to understand. If something comes down from above, say, you know, oh, you should donate $300 or $1,000 or 10% or this. Guess what? I'm telling you right now, you don't have to do anything. You do not have to do anything. You are free. This is Chernobyl. We are free to choose what we want to do. There's a very semi-famous psychologist named Shad Helmstetter who wrote a book entitled What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. We all talk to ourselves. We don't like to admit it, but we all talk to ourselves. And he said, your brain is like a computer. What you say is like the software. You are always programming your brain. So if you say, oh, I can't do this, or I hate this, or I'm bad at this, then you will fail. Because your brain says, oh, you want me to fail? Okay, I can do that. I can fail easily, you know. But if you tell yourself, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it because I choose it. The important thing, he's very much an existentialist. You need to choose what you're going to do and reaffirm that all the time by telling yourself, yes, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. So, for example, say you want to get really buff. You want to go to the gym and work out. As you can tell, I probably don't do that enough. In fact, I don't do it at all. But anyway, if you want to do that, I'm sure people who are like that physical regimen of going to the gym all the time, there are mornings they wake up and say, oh, I don't want to go to the gym today. Oh, God, I feel terrible. I was up late last night. Okay, if you tell yourself, oh, I hate this. I don't want to do this. Even if you go to the gym, you'll hate it. And you're damnably miserable because I don't want to do this. But if you say, no, I chose to do this. I wanted this because, yes, it's hard, it's painful, but I want to get buff. I want to get ripped. I want to be, you know, a macho dude or dudette, whichever. And then when you tell yourself that's what you want to do, when you choose to do it, you can do it with a free heart. So whenever I get any direction from the church leadership, I don't automatically say, oh, I got to run out and do this thing. I'm totally broke, but I got to give $1,000. I'll just let my kids starve for another week. I'll give $1,000. No. You know, somebody asked Father one time, what is the difference between you and Jesus? Father said Jesus was very faithful, very obedient to God, but he was not wise. So he knew that he had to witness to Israel, to restore Israel. But when things were not going well, he just kept trying harder and harder and doing more miracles and wasting his indemnity on miracles on people who didn't care until the point where he had no choice but to die. Father said, if I were Jesus, and I had been rejected by John the Baptist, and rejected by the Pharisees, and rejected by the Sadducees, I would have gone to Persia or some other place to try to make another foundation. Then go back to Israel. That's why Father came to America. To win over enough Americans so that he could go back to Korea and say, look, I have this great foundation in the United States. You guys have to listen to me. Now, think about how many of you were at Washington Monument? Many of you. This is why you should never regret your decisions. Do you understand the significance of Washington Monument? Jesus was crucified by the Romans. The Washington Monument was essentially a restoration of the crucifixion. Father came to 20th century Rome and was welcomed by, 100,000 people or more. He was welcomed in Rome, in a sense. That is probably one of the most significant things in the province, next to the Holy Blessing itself. And those of us who were there, who participated, that is our eternal glory. We should never regret that. We should never regret the good that we've done. So, how do we not have regrets? It's very simple, be an existentialist. Choose what you want to do. If somebody tells me you got to give $500 to the church, like, yeah, look at my bank account, that's not going to happen. Okay. But maybe down the line I'll give some money, or maybe I'll give $50, and maybe next, 2 months later I'll give another $50. Maybe I can. So if I really want to do it, if I decide I want to do it, if I don't want to do it, I just won't do it. But if I want to do it, I might do it over time. I have to be wise. We have to think. I don't want to ruin my family. I don't want to ruin my life in order to do this once condition. Unless God says, China's going to invade America tomorrow if you don't give $500. Okay, I'll give the $500 tomorrow. But if it's not quite that pressing, I'll find some other way to do it. My point is, we should be the happiest people on earth. How many people? Some people say, if I were the son of Jesus, I would have followed him. Yeah, crap. But how many? There are many devout Christians. How many do you think would give their right arm or their left arm to meet Jesus in the flesh, even for 5 minutes? Oh, I would do anything to meet my Lord. I would do anything. And there are people like that. But they didn't meet true parents. We did. We not only met them, we spent 40 plus years with them. We are without a doubt the luckiest people on the face of the planet. Not on the face of the planet, we're the luckiest people in human history. There have been billions and billions of people who lived. They never met true parents. We did. So, in conclusion, we should be people who are eternally grateful for what we have. But in order to remain grateful, we have to be thoughtful and we have to choose what we do. If you think the church is not doing something that should be done, then do it yourself. Was Wolfgang and Mitzwe Wobbenberger, out in Oregon, I think. They felt the church was not doing enough to help bless couples and second gen with their marriages. But instead of complaining and saying, oh yeah, church is not doing enough, what did they do? They donated $100,000 to the Blessed Family Project, whatever it is, the Blessed Marriage Project. And so people have been going to workshops for blessed couples and just having a real rebirth experience in their marriage. So, if you think the second gen here needs more education or something, on principle or whatever, but the church is not doing it well, who are the church? You're the church. If you think this needs to be done, then just do it. You have a nice place here. Just say, hey, we're going to do a workshop this weekend. Come on. We'll talk about whatever. It's principle. We'll talk about how to get a good job, how to save money. I don't know, whatever. The point is, we should not be people who complain. We should be people who take responsibility. This is the whole point of Son of the Book. We are to be co-creators with God. That means if we're just doing what we're told to do, we're not co-creators. We're not God's children. We're just peons. We're just, slaves. Just obedient. No. We need to be people who are self-starters. As I said, we we're the luckiest people. I love all of you. I mean, just coming here, I actually started tearing up thinking about everybody here and how much you've all been through, how much we've all been through, so much, year after year after year after year. And yeah, a lot of our lives is long stretches which are really painful. But as Father said many times, the more difficulties you persevere through, the deeper you are delving into the heart of God. So really we need to realize that we are blessed. Even our troubles are a blessing for us. But if we want to be happy people, we need to think, and we need to choose, and we need to take responsibility. Freedom, responsibility. Right? God is so committed to freedom that even when he saw Adam and Eve heading toward the fall, he did not intervene. We need to be free. We need to make choices. So I want to encourage all of you, all of us, to be good Unification Church existentialists, to be happy people who deliberately choose what we're going to do. Now, I hope you won't all go out and tar and feather Pastor Werner tomorrow. No, because we should not be bitter. We should not be angry. We should be people saying, "Oh, I don't know if Pastor Werner is doing what I want, but I bet I could do this other thing, which would be very helpful." And he might say, "Yeah, that's a great idea." And if it flops, well then find another idea. Don't stop. One last point. Father said, there's only one final sin. That is giving up. If you give up, you're finished. Because then God can't work in your life. No matter how bad things get. Even if you say, yeah, I really messed up. I'm at my wit's end. I've really done. Oh man, I didn't want to tell you all the things I've done. I can't think. No, if you don't give up, you can undo, you can, reverse course and accomplish anything you want. But you just need to keep going. And so, I expect to hear good things from this church from now on. I expect to hear happy people doing happy things. Because I really encourage you, please choose. But as I said in the Last Crusade, Indiana Jones' Last Crusade, choose, but choose wisely. Choose in accordance with your original mind and be happy campers. Thank you very much. Let me pray. Beloved Heavenly Father, Mother, our true Heavenly Parent, thank you so much for all you've given us. Thank you especially for our true parents, for the divine principle, and most especially for the blessing of true marriage and your holy blood lineage. We're so grateful to be able to have been able to participate with true parents in life. We want sincerely to support our true mother now as she continues to lead the Providence. At this time more than ever, we need to pray for her health, that she may live another 30 or 40 years so that we can really reunite the entire Unification family, true family, and Unification nation to set an example for the rest of the world. And I thank you so much for my really beloved brothers and sisters who are here, who've really struggled through 40 years or more to serve and attend God and true parents. I pray that all of us can realize the great blessing and value of having been able to do this and never for a moment regret anything that we've given with a pure heart. So once again, we thank you for your many blessings. We pray that we can really live according to our original mind and choose the right way, the best way, according to our own conscience and heart and mind, to fulfill your will for us. I thank you once again for the privilege of being here, and I pray your blessing will be on everyone here throughout this week and throughout this year and throughout the rest of our lives. I pray these things in the name of everyone here, in the name of Wayne Miller, of the Miller Blessing and Family of Children. God, you. Amen.